Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 126 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great, man. You haven't given me a two-man sentence, though, in a while.
No, I've been holding back on the man.
Yeah, you got to let those mans fly.
Well, you know, man.
Two mans make for a great episode. That's what we always say, right? Not that this won't be a good episode.
Be a good episode,
Great
man.
episode.
You know what I'm saying, man? There you go.
Exactly. So you're doing good. I'm doing good. We got a lot of things going on, man. I'll throw another man in.
Man it up.
To man it up. We have our new podcast. The reviews are in.
Yeah.
It's out. I messed it up. Didn't put it out on all the platforms this week, but the first episode is out right now. The second episode comes out a couple of days after this airs. So
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Give it a listen.
Yeah. Go check it out. Subscribe. In this next episode, we've got some interesting topics to discuss
Some really interesting.
and some pretty funny reviews.
Yeah.
All right. We have some new Patreon supporters. So let's give some shout outs.
Okay.
We had Melissa Dickens,
Hey, Melissa.
Jonna Garneau,
God, no.
Juan Gonzalez,
Hey, Juan.
Bradfield,
What's up, Bradfield?
Curtis Higgs,
Oh, Curtis.
Liam Perry.
That sounds like the Worcestershire sauce, man.
Nope. That's Leah Perrins, I think.
I'm just saying.
This is Liam Perry.
Well, he sounds like a
I know you got
Worcestershire
hung up
sauce.
on that in our Patreon
I
episode.
did.
It confused you to no end.
Just a little bit.
We had Marcus,
Hey, Marcus.
Matt Coleman,
What's going on, Matt?
Avery Best,
Hey, Avery.
Angela Hensley,
Thanks, Angela.
Morgan,
Hey, Morgan.
Chantel Taylor,
What's up, Chantel?
Stacy Tice,
Hey, Tice.
Mandy and Terry,
Mandy and Terry.
Bradley Polson jumped out at their highest
We
level,
got a Polson involved.
Veronica,
Hey, Veronica.
Alec Tupper,
Taking the Tupperware fortune.
exactly,
Yeah.
Ryan Goodman,
Hey, Ryan.
Rebecca,
What's going on, Rebecca?
Alex,
Thanks, Alex.
Jean Brown,
Hey, Jean.
Grace Russell,
Oh, Grace.
Crystal Thompson,
Thank you, Crystal.
Chelsea Jenkins,
Hey, Chelsea.
and Andreas Madsen.
Andreas. Thank you.
So a lot of new great Patreon support. We really appreciate that. And then if we go back into the Vault Gibbs,
Go back.
this week we selected Amy Flowers,
Hey, Amy.
longtime Patreon supporter. And we appreciate the long-term Patreon support as well. We've got so many great people that have been with us for years now.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Maybe she goes by Flower.
Flowers
Yeah.
instead of flowers.
Just saying.
Never know. With you, it's hard telling.
It's just
You are
trying.
right on some very strange things. Let me just say that when it comes to names. We had some great PayPal support as well. Brenna Eastman,
Hey,
Patricia Lopez,
what's up?
Chelsea Camp,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay.
Ken Gretsch,
Hey, thank you.
and Mary Ashley.
Two people?
No, Mary Ashley.
Mary Ashley. Okay. Thank you, both of you.
I would have said Mary and Ashley.
Yeah, I know.
All right. We have an episode out on True Crime All the Time right now on a guy named Lawrence Singleton. This was a strange cat,
Very strange indeed.
Pretty brutal, only committed one murder. And I hate to use the word only, but that's strange for us. But in his younger days, committed a sexual assault and mutilation, Gibbs, of a girl that ultimately lived. But it happened in a way that we've never covered.
It's definitely a different episode for us, case-wise, but it's worth listening to.
Yeah, it's brutal, but this girl survived, and we talk about her life after, and as a survivor. That part is pretty uplifting. We talk about Patreon a lot. You and I are now putting out weekly videos as well as audio. So now's a great time to join up and support us on Patreon if you haven't done it, or if you used to do it and want to come back. It's a great time. All right, Gibbs, are you ready to get into this episode of Unsolved?
I am.
We're talking about the murder of actress Christa Helm. Christa was a beautiful blonde that caught the eyes of many people in the entertainment business in the 70s. She had some minor success in the business, but nothing that really took off for her, at least up until the point where she was murdered.
Yeah.
I think with Christa, it's tough because she was an aspiring actress. She had been in some films. She was, like I said, a very beautiful woman. You don't know where her career would have gone because she was murdered at a relatively young age.
But she did date a lot of power players in the New York area, out in the Hollywood area. So she had a lot of connections.
And those connections could have helped her, most likely would, right? Have helped propel her into maybe not a megastar, you don't know, but a much bigger star than she was at the time she died.
Yeah. But the one interesting thing that she did do is when she dated these power players, you know, from producers to actors to people that put the money together, financiers.
Sure.
She kept a little black book, diary, journal, whatever you want to call it, where she would put certain information in. Like, besides her contact information, what did they like to do in private moments? It was said that she also kind of jotted down certain sizes.
She had a rating system, I think.
And on top of that, a rating system.
Yeah. She had a rating system that I think encompassed parts of her sex life with these individuals. Like you mentioned, this rating system, I think, extended to body parts and, you know, whatever you want to call it, a little black book, a sex diary, a sex journal. When you are dating powerful people, that's not something you probably want to get out.
No.
Because my thought is powerful people, they don't want that information disclosed to anyone.
Nope.
And depending on who it is, what their mindset is, you don't know what links some people will go to keep that kind of what could be potentially damaging or embarrassing information private.
Right.
Now, if you got the highest rating in there, maybe you say, I don't care. If you got if you're on the low end of the stick, you might be willing to go to links including murder to keep that from being known.
Potentially.
In 1977, Christa Helm was fatally stabbed over 30 times, and her little black book ended up missing.
Yeah. And so were some tapes that she made of certain events.
Well, let's call them what they were. They were sex tapes.
They were sex tapes.
And that's what they were.
And they are no longer to be found.
And I think it's a big part of this case. We'll dive into it a little bit later. You know, it had investigators wondering, you know, was this a jealous lover? Was it an upset spouse? Or, like we kind of talked about a little bit, was it one of Christa's lovers not wanting whatever information was in the book or on a tape or whatever it was to get out to the public?
Yeah. Or could she have been blackmailing them? I mean, it's a bold thing to do, right? When you decide to blackmail somebody, there's no turning back.
No, it's very bold. There's no turning back. You're right about that. But these are guys that have a lot of money and most likely would pay to ensure that some of this information didn't get out. We're not saying she did this. This is a theory, though, that I think police had that could have happened. One lead police have in this cold case is a puzzling postcard that Christa sent to a friend before she died. And on this postcard, she wrote, I am in way over my head here. I'm into something I can't get out of. Well, obviously, Gibbs, investigators are going to look at that and say, okay, there's a chance whatever that was played a part in her death.
Sure.
So I think first off, we have to look at who Christa was, how she came to rise up, you know, through her career, and talk about some of the different people that she met, she was associated with. It's all important.
Yeah. Yeah. People that she crossed patterns with.
Christa Helm was her stage name. She was actually born Sandra Woolfield on November 10th, 1949 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She was the oldest in her family. She had two younger sisters, Marissa and Candace. Her parents were Harry and Dolores Woolfield. But I think, Gibbs, for the sake of continuity, we're going to continue to call her Christa. It will just get too confusing.
Yeah, that's good.
If not. So her parents divorced when she was about 3 years old. Christa's dad was in the asphalt business, and he eventually remarried. And this gave Christa two more siblings. Her mother had a pretty troubled life. She battled alcoholism. Dolores had, a rough go after the divorce. She had a lot of bad relationships.
Some pretty bad and violent ones.
Yeah. So she might have had a bad picker, as we like to say. Picked men that had trouble with alcohol, picked men that were violent. Christa and her two sisters lived with their mom during this point in time. But it got really ugly when these men that Dolores was dating came to the house. Sometimes they sexually assaulted her, and sometimes turned their attention to the girls as well.
Yeah. It's
horrible.
It's messed up. Not a good environment to be in.
No. And as a mom, I'm thinking about the guilt that you would feel knowing that a man that you brought home ultimately sexually assaulted your daughters. How much of that would you put on your shoulders? I think, a lot, even if it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't know this was a bad guy. It turned out to be a bad guy. The guilt would be pretty massive.
Pretty heavy. So the one thing that comes out of this is that the dad finds out, and he doesn't waste any time. He takes the three girls, he gets them out of that environment right away and has them move in with him and his two other kids and tries to get them into a healthy environment.
Christa had some other issues during her rough childhood. She had a spinal cord issue that is said to have come from lack of proper nutrition, maybe from some physical abuse. But what it caused was the need for her to wear a back brace. That is rough on a child, not just the physical pain, but what you have to endure at school.
Yeah.
The teasing, the name calling, it happened.
So back then they weren't the easiest thing to hide. I mean, they definitely stood out and people knew you had something on.
Yeah. I mean, she tried to cover it.
Yeah.
Right? Wearing bigger clothes, much bigger than what she needed to had she not had the brace.
Sure.
But you take this having to wear the back brace and you take the abuse that she suffered. Christa started to develop some major self-esteem issues. But as she got older, she started to develop. She was a very pretty girl. We talked about that. So the boys began paying attention to her. And she liked that attention.
Yeah, she was getting the attention that she wasn't really getting at home. So now she was finally getting attention from people for the right or wrong reasons. Doesn't matter. She was getting attention and she liked it.
Well, for a person that has issues with self-esteem, you're experiencing a situation that's helping to raise your self-esteem.
Yeah.
These people like you.
And that feels good when people like you.
Now, you said right or wrong reasons. Okay, it's superficial. She's pretty. The boys like her. I get that. It doesn't change the fact that it did help her self-esteem. Christa became outgoing. She grew into a teenager that liked to have fun. I think she was a little bit flirty from the research.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, she enjoyed the attention. When Christa was 16 years old, she fell in love. But there were a few issues, right, that cropped up out of this love affair.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that. First of all, the man she fell in love with was 26 years old.
Older man.
So you've got a 10-year age difference. You have a 16-year-old girl. Add on top of that it's been alleged that this guy was part of the mafia. It wasn't long into this relationship that Christa became pregnant. This man asked her to marry him.
And she said yes. And they moved to Chicago.
Christa gave birth just after her 17th birthday. to her daughter, Nicole. This was 1967. But less than a year after she gave birth to Nicole, her husband went missing. He was never found. No cause of death was confirmed, obviously. They don't even know really what happened. They don't know if he died.
Yeah, there was some people, rumors said the mafia did it. Some rumors where he was in a motorcycle accident down in Florida when he was down there for a trip. Nobody really knows. Now, she would always go with the story that it was a motorcycle accident, but there was never any confirmation and there was never a body.
You would think, knowing that your husband is in the mafia, you'd probably be in the camp of, well, obviously it must have had something to do with that. People in the mafia seem to disappear.
Quite a bit.
And have over the years historically.
Just ask the Iceman.
Yeah, the Iceman, he knew all about that. The thing with the motorcycle accident, I get it. It's the late 60s. So the guy's down in Florida, not quite as easy probably to figure out who somebody is if they don't have ID on them. But you would think at some point they're going to figure out who this guy is.
You would think, yeah.
Much more believable to me that, it was a hit or, he did something he wasn't supposed to and he got whacked.
He's with the fishes?
He's with the fishes. I just like to say the word whacked. But this was a big problem for Christa. She wasn't working, and it wasn't like she was going to get some pension or something. He didn't have a real job. The mafia is not a real job that is set up to take care of your spouse. It's not like you're a teacher or you work in some type of union job. So she had no income, which forced her to move back with her daughter to Milwaukee. She was offered a job as a waitress at a local Italian restaurant that some of her husband's old associates ran.
It's a good place to work, Good Italian restaurant. It's a good food. It's a good place.
Just because you add an A on the end of something does not make it Italian. How many times I got to tell you that? Good food.
It's a good food.
We have to keep in mind, Christa is still very young. She's 17, 18 years old, has a daughter, has lost a husband, is working in this Italian restaurant as a waitress. She begins catching the eye of a lot of men. She's very attractive. I'm assuming everybody that came through that restaurant, Gibbs, saw her and thought, she's attractive.
Yeah.
She probably got hit on quite a bit.
Probably did.
She met another single mom at the restaurant. The two of them hit it off and they moved into a 2-bedroom apartment together. They had a lot of fun. Had, after work parties at the apartment. The one thing that comes up a lot in the research about Christa Helms is that she knew how to have a good time.
She did. She was very outgoing.
She liked to party. But the interesting thing about her was she wasn't into a lot of things that you would think she would have been into. A person that likes to have fun, a person that likes to party. She didn't drink a lot. She really wasn't into smoking pot or doing other drugs. At least that's, the way it's been portrayed. It's been reported.
Yeah. But she knew how to have a good time,
And she liked to have a good time.
Yeah.
So Christa's roommate was a woman named Diane. And after they moved in together, they were holding these parties. They got invited to go to a big party with their boss, both Christa and Diane. The party was being held at the Playboy Club in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. While Christa was there, she met a lot of guys. And this is when Gibbs, I think she started to meet some very successful people in the entertainment industry. One guy in particular that took an interest in Christa was a man named James Darren, who starred on the show Gidget. Now, I think you have to be of a particular age to really remember Gidget.
Yeah, I don't remember Gidget.
Oh, you were there when they were taping Gidget. But, Sally Fields was Gidget. It was a cute show.
Yeah.
For that time period.
I remember seeing reruns of it or something on the TV Land or maybe. Not sure.
TV Land? You don't even know what TV Land is.
I don't really.
At one point, Christa and Diane started talking to this guy, James Darren, telling him that they wanted to work at the Playboy Club as bunnies.
Probably make some good money.
Oh, I guarantee it. But Darren convinced them both that they would be better off working at the Playboy Club in Chicago. It was a lot bigger. It would be a lot more fun. There's going to be a lot more power players, more influential people to see, to meet. And he said that he could get them hired.
Well, in Chicago, from where they were living in Wisconsin, it's just a train ride in.
Oh, yeah, not too far, right?
Yeah.
Milwaukee, Chicago. So Christa and Diane go to Chicago. They go to the Playboy Club. They were hired on the spot. So they start making all these plans, right? They're going to commute from Milwaukee to Chicago on the train every day at first until they're able to move into, I guess, Gibbs, what were called the bunny dorms.
Yeah, they have these bunny dorms where you would stay while you trained. That way you were on site the whole time and good training, right?
You asking me what kind? I have no idea what type of training a Playboy bunny went through in the late 1960s.
I'm just saying if you
I'm sure Hef put together a heck of a program, but I don't know what it was.
I'm sure it was a nice, manual on how to train and how to do it, and make sure you kept them on site so they didn't get in trouble.
I actually did watch a documentary, now that I'm thinking about it, about the Playboy clubs that existed around the country.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it's been a long time, it was actually a pretty rigorous thing. Like the rules were extremely rigid. And I think they dealt with weight, height. You had to look a certain way.
Yeah.
You had to wear your hair a certain way.
I believe that. Yeah. And that's why I think at that time they were so successful.
And times have changed a lot though, right? The airlines used to have things like that. If I'm not mistaken, they would weigh airline stewardesses back in the day.
They did back in the day.
And if you didn't make weight, you didn't fly.
Yeah.
You can't get away with doing that stuff today.
No, you can't do that to people.
But this was a different time. This is a different era. There was a lot of stuff going on that would never fly today. But back to Christa and Diane. They were excited and they were slated to begin their training in a week. But for some reason, Diane decided that she couldn't go through with it. So this left Christa to go on her own. But in the end, Christa made the decision that she couldn't do it either. She couldn't do it without Diane, I think, is what it ultimately came down to, or she didn't want to.
Yeah, I think they were just two good friends that couldn't be separated.
So in the end, this dream that she had, because I think it was a dream. I don't know when it started, but it became a dream at some point to be a Playboy bunny, fizzled out, never came to be.
To be a Playboy bunny, kind of, for a lot of people, would be the stepping stone to get into the magazine, which would be a stepping stone into more entertainment field.
All right. So that dream doesn't come true for either Christa or Diane, but it didn't stop them from wanting to be famous. These were two beautiful young women. They had designs on being famous, doing something big. So they made plans to move to the Big Apple, New York City.
Yeah.
Which, if you want to be famous, there's two places that people normally go.
Well, especially in the 60s.
Yeah, especially
70s.
in the 60s. New York City or Hollywood / Los Angeles, California.
That's it. Because if you can make it there.
You can make it anywhere.
Yeah. So they decided to go ahead and move to New York. They left their kids with a very good friend in Vermont to raise while they went to New York to pursue their modeling / acting career.
So when they got to New York, they got a room at the YWCA. And it wasn't very long, Gibbs, before they started going on auditions. But I don't think that these auditions were exactly what they had in mind. These were two, I think, fairly naive girls, right? They didn't know what they were really doing when it came to the Big Apple, especially, but modeling. I mean, this was all kind of new to them. It's not like they had some big portfolio. to
Right.
show people when they went somewhere. So what they ended up getting auditions for was pornography
Yeah.
for the most part.
Exotic prints.
Yeah, I mean, pornography is kind of a loose term,
Yeah.
but it would nude photographs, things like that.
Well, I know you did a stint of that in your college years.
Let's not talk about Rex West now and
Hey, what I do in my chaps,
the Playgirl ad.
what I do in my chaps, in my boots, it's all legit, man. It's where I hang my hat.
I don't think it was what they thought it was going to be. You know, this was kind of underground, kind of seedy type stuff, but it didn't stop them. And I think that was the key. They did start getting some small jobs. They also took jobs as a waitress at a popular club. And I think this is when Christa really started to meet some famous people. She dated a famous singer. She dated and actually lived with a guy that played professional football for the Buffalo Bills. This is also around the time that the two friends started to move in opposite directions. You know, I think Diane had had enough of New York City
And struggling.
and she was struggling a little bit more than Christa was, I think.
And I think she was missing her daughter on a greater level.
She ended up moving back to Milwaukee, but Christa stayed to try to get this career in entertainment going. In 1971, Christa moved in with a multi-millionaire. This was an heir to the Leah and Perrin Worcestershire sauce company.
It's good stuff, man.
I know you love it. You
I
talk
do.
about it a lot.
I like it.
The guy's name was Stuart Duncan, and he also happened to be an up-and-coming Broadway producer.
As myself is.
As you are.
Yeah.
As myself is.
That's when you hit that one button.
Not with that vocabulary, it's not.
You hit that special button.
So her career was doing fairly well. She was modeling. It got good enough at one point that she was able to move into a high rise in Manhattan. She bought a sports car. She even invested money that she earned modeling into Stuart's new play, which was called Godspell, which, if anybody knows anything about theater, Godspell was a huge hit.
Yeah, back then it sure was. Took off.
It's still being done today. But when it first came out, it really was big. And I actually just watched a show the other day. It's comedians in cars getting coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Was Seinfeld?
Yeah.
So he had on Martin Short,
Okay.
the comedian.
Yeah. Great entertainment.
Funny. Yeah. Martin Short was actually talking about Godspell
Really?
and how, when it was being cast, they were looking for people. Martin Short was dating Gilda Radner at the time, which I didn't even know.
Wow.
So Gilda was in Godspell. I think Dan Aykroyd, a lot of big players that would go on to be, Saturday Night Live alums.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
It is a huge deal.
So she made a healthy return on this investment that she made, and, it gave her a sizable amount of money. In 1972, Stuart gifted a second home in the Hamptons to Christa.
Nice little, hey, honey, I got you something. Let's walk out to the beach here. Turn around. Oh, by the way, this is your house.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
This was back when a lot of New Yorkers were looking for places in the Hamptons, weekend getaway type thing. But she also got another present from Stuart around this same time, breast enlargement surgery.
Yeah. Something that she really wanted. And he was nice enough to make sure that she got what she asked for. Good guy.
I'm catching the sarcasm in your voice.
Just a tad.
That he did this for her.
Yeah.
But, this was a big year for Christa because it's also the year that she actually changed her name to Christa Helm. We've been calling her Christa the whole time, but it really wasn't until 1972 that she made the official name change.
Yeah. At the request of her astrologer.
Maybe she thought it would help her in her career.
Maybe.
She's seeing the future, right? So she knew what was going to happen. It seems like we've been talking about Christa doing a lot of things. Keep in mind, she's still only 23 years old. She's happy.
Yeah, I mean, she feels better about herself. She had some minor cosmetic changes done. Plus, she had the enlargement done. So, I mean, I think at this point, her confidence level was probably at the highest it has ever been.
It was around this time that she met Jeremiah Newton. This guy was an up-and-coming writer, film producer, but this guy had a lot of connections in that world, the world that Christa wanted to be in. He introduced her to people like Candy Darling, Lou Reed, Andy Warhol, pretty big names in that time.
Yeah, that's that New York scene.
Yeah, some of those big names still today, really.
Oh, yeah.
Not all alive, but when you say the name Andy Warhol, most people know who that was.
Oh, for sure, especially that era.
She got her first film role in the movie The Legacy of Satan, which, not surprisingly, was a pretty small budget film that just happened to be made by the same guy who made Deep Throat. Also a pretty small budget film that made a bunch of money.
It did make a bunch of money.
And I'm not talking about The Legacy of Satan. I'm talking about Deep Throat.
Yeah.
In 1973, Christa's boyfriend, Stuart, got into the filmmaking business and he made a movie called Let's Go for Broke. Christa was cast as one of the stars of the movie. This budget was a little bit bigger, Gibbs. For 1973, this movie cost $1 million.
Yeah, it did. It was originally slated to be only $400,000, but somehow, and a lot of the blame gets pushed on to Christa for wanting a big entourage, wanting finer things when she was on the island where they shot it. Whatever reason, it ended up costing them $1 million to make this movie. And I don't know, the quality is not.
Yeah, you said movie kind of, you probably could have put that in air quotes. I've seen parts of the movie. I've seen clips. It does not look good. I'm just going to say that,
Yeah.
And really, what you said, going from 400 ballooning to $1 million, that is how people lose their ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I would be shocked if that movie made anywhere near $1 million. I guarantee you, we could look it up, but I don't want to. I guarantee you, a lot of people lost money on that movie.
I'm pretty sure it probably only went on to the limited screening and then probably came off pretty fast. It got recognized in the industry. People start taking notice. A good movie, bad movie, I guess it didn't matter. It was a movie that she could put credit to.
Well, look at some really big stars. When they started out, they were in some horrible movies.
Yeah.
But they got recognized for whatever reason. Their looks, their acting chops. People realized that, hey, this person could be a really good actor someday. She even caught the eye of famous quarterback Joe Namath.
That's a superstar right there, man.
He was a superstar. He wasn't the best quarterback that ever lived. He was a good quarterback for the New York Jets, but he was as flamboyant of a Playboy sports figure as there was back then.
Oh, yeah.
Broadway Joe, they called him. He was doing every commercial. He was doing commercials, for hair products and women's razors. He was shaving his legs and selling women's razors. That's how popular this guy was.
Why am I thinking he did commercials for ladies' stockings? For some
I think
reason?
he did legs or,
Something,
one of those. Because women loved him. And if Joe Namath said something was good, then you better go out and buy it. So we mentioned it up front, right? Christa Helm dated a lot of men, was with a lot of men. She dated Joe Namath for a short period. She was dating a director named Ron Walsh. She dated an adult film producer, Jonas Middleton. She even helped him write a script for an adult film. This is no secret. And, it has to be told in the story of Christa Helm because it's important. The fact that she did date a lot of men.
And allegedly she kept a diary about these events.
Right. And I think that's why it's important, right? Not so much that she dated a lot of men. I probably said that incorrectly. It's really more about the black book that's tied to all of these powerful men. But Christa makes a decision to move to Hollywood. She's going to move west. She feels like that's going to be the best move for her career. She's got a lot of contacts now. Once she gets to LA, she's partying, she's in Hollywood, she's meeting a lot more people, actors, musicians, politicians, the guys with the money that make the films.
Yeah. Yeah. She's seen all the right people. She feels good about being out there. She actually has her little sister come move out there with her.
And it's in LA that she moves in with another multimillionaire, guy named Bernie Kornfeld. And she took her little sister with her to move into this great big mansion. This guy, Bernie, was a pretty well-known womanizer. But this was a big mansion in Beverly Hills, Gibbs. Dozens of bedrooms.
Yeah.
But they weren't empty. Bernie had most of these bedrooms occupied with young, beautiful female movie stars. Some had models. He had high-end call girls in there.
He was surrounded by beautiful women 24/7 in this big old mansion.
And you would think that was something that Christa would have a problem with, but it didn't seem as though she did. I think she liked living there. She made friends with the other women that lived there. She was approached while living at the mansion about being a high-end call girl herself, but she turned it down. She thought she didn't need it. Her career was getting ready to take off. So she was living in this big mansion with Bernie, but she was still dating other men. And these weren't just regular guys. I mean, we're talking about George Hamilton, Warren Beatty, Mick Jagger, Engelbert Humperdinck. This is a who's who of celebrities at the time. She even dated the famous movie director Roman Polanski. And obviously true crime fans know who Roman Polanski is. I mean, it wasn't that many years before Roman and Christa dated that he had been married to Sharon Tate, who was murdered by the Manson family.
Yeah.
He also became pretty infamous for his relationship, sometime later with an underage female that caused him to flee the country forever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pretty well documented. It was said that Christa Helm even had a fling with the Shah of Iran.
Yeah, the Shah gave her all kind of jewelry, expensive gifts, when she dated him for a short brief of time.
My assumption is the Shah of Iran gives very, very nice gifts.
Yeah, I would think so.
Quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So she's meeting and dating a ton of well-known wealthy men around town, but she hadn't gotten this big break yet, right? She hadn't received her big movie part to date. She was in some TV commercials. She had a couple of small parts on pretty big TV shows, Starsky and Hutch, Wonder Woman. Those were huge shows.
Yeah, back in the day.
But she was playing a bit part. That's not what she wanted.
No.
Right? She wanted to be the star of something. At the same time that she's trying to get all these acting roles, she was working on her singing voice. She really thought she could be a singer.
Yeah, I think she thought she was the next disco singer. I mean, I know you like the disco.
Oh, what is not to like about disco? You get you one of those rotating disco balls, some platform shoes, some bell bottoms, wide collar. You are set to go.
You still have the Gibbs posters. Andy Gibb.
I like all three of the
Gibb brothers.
I like all the Gibbs.
Yeah.
I like you too,
yeah.
Gibbs.
There you go. It's the Gibb thing. She got some help from a friend. He owned Casablanca Records at the time. He was able to get her connected to a music producer, and they were able to kind of weave together a studio band so they could do some recording. As they worked on a disco record, she got fascinated by one of the female backup singers and started having a relationship with her. This was new for her, but she really liked this woman, and this was something new.
And by that, you mean it was new for Christa to have a sexual relationship with a woman.
Exactly.
And I think it got pretty serious, this relationship. About 2 weeks prior to her murder, Christa met a woman named Debbie. Debbie was another backup singer. The two became friends pretty quickly. Now, it didn't turn into anything more than that. They were just friends and they respected each other. They liked each other. Now we get to February 12th, 1977. Christa headed out to a holiday party. So the plan is for Christa to go to this party with her roommate, Stephanie, and their mutual friend, Sandy Smith, who is a music talent agent. So Christa borrowed Stephanie's car to pick up Sandy Smith. The problem is no one hears from her after this. She never makes it to the party. Later that night, just outside of Sandy's home in West Hollywood, Christa's bloody and lifeless body was found by a man walking along the street. She was laying by her car with her keys in her hand. So the police come out. They start their investigation. They start to talk to neighbors, and pretty quickly they find out that one of Sandy's neighbors heard what he described as either a crying baby, or he said it almost sounded like a dying cat.
Yeah, just like a horrific sound.
So he told police that he came outside, he looked around because this noise was so alarming, but he didn't see anything, and he went back inside. The police told this guy, hey, if you had just walked out to the street, you would have seen her.
Yeah, it was so dark that night, but if he just would have went out a little further, like the police said, he could have came across her body, and maybe he could have helped. I don't know. I mean, she could have been too far gone at that point.
Yeah, that's the part we don't know. She could have already been deceased. So the police start to put together their theory, right, based on the evidence. And it's that Christa was jumped from behind. She was stabbed over 30 times. She received 22 stab wounds to her chest, the others to her face, neck, some to her arm. Her head was bludgeoned. Police were able to get some residue under Christa's nails, which they believed came from her scratching her attacker. But of course, this is, 1977. There's no DNA testing at this point in time. The other thing they found was that Christa's purse was missing. It wasn't at the scene. This was a designer purse, and it was thought that it may have contained her little black book or her secret diary detailing the information about, the men that she had been with. The police came out and said they thought this murder was an act of rage. I don't think that's, a stretch, Gibbs. She was stabbed 30 times. I mean, normally that many stab wounds denotes a pretty high level of rage.
Yeah, somebody that really despised you.
So based on that, the police thought this was most likely someone that knew Christa, maybe even a jilted lover, something along those lines. When they talked to Sandy, Sandy said he never heard anything. So that led police to believe that she was attacked right after getting out of her car. And that makes sense. She was found by her car. Keys were still in her hand. She hadn't even put the keys in her purse. So the question is, did someone follow her there? Or was someone who knew she was going to be there waiting on her?
Yeah. Or was it a complete stranger that was on the hunt that night?
Christa's death didn't even make the front page. It was not even a front page news story in the local press, which seems strange.
Yeah, I find it strange too. I mean, you would think.
A socialite, an actress. Now, she wasn't a big star.
No.
But this is a murder of an actress in West Hollywood. You would think it would make the local news front page. And that's not going to make national headlines.
Well, if it didn't make the local headlines, it's not going to make the national.
No.
But you would still think, pretty horrific murder that you would think the media would want to get it out there. It would sell a few papers, I hate to say that, but it would.
Yeah, no doubt. The police interviewed over 70 people as part of their investigation into Christa's murder. And I think, Gibbs, that police initially thought the date of Christa's murder could have some significance because it was just a year prior, on the same day, that actor Sal Mineo was killed.
Pretty popular guy. Hung out with James Dean.
Yeah, I think any time that you co-star in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean, you're looked at as a pretty serious actor. You're well known.
Yeah.
But it's not just the date, right? Sal Mineo was stabbed and beaten very much in the same manner that Christa Helm was, and in the very same neighborhood. So I think police are really looking at this connection. Sal's killer was eventually caught and convicted of his murder. It was a 21-year-old man named Lionel Williams. But the strange thing here to me is that even though they were looking into these similarities between the two murders, police never questioned Lionel Williams about the murder of Christa Helm. And I think the reason why it's so strange is that this guy was not arrested until after Christa's murder. So he was on the street.
Yeah, could have been him, right? Could have.
Yeah, the window of opportunity was there for him. But again, they just never interviewed him for that. He served 12 years, was released, got into some trouble later in life, did some more time, but was really never considered as a suspect, not really questioned in Christa's death.
Which I think a lot of people find that bizarre, or as you said, strange.
Well, there is a lot of similarities, and you could say, okay, those are just coincidences, but they're strange coincidences. But we have to really get back to Christa's diary, her little black book. It was back then and continues to be today the biggest subject, the biggest question, I think, surrounding her death. I think many felt back then and still feel today that whatever Christa had written inside her little black book was the cause for her murder. Many have speculated that, like we mentioned, names, contact information, other types of rating information for all these powerful people, stars that she had dated, that she had sex with. Investigators learned about the sex tapes. And I think, Gibbs, the one thing that we haven't mentioned about these tapes is that they were made by Christa without the knowledge of the men that she was having sex with.
Yeah.
It's not like the video camera was set up on a tripod and they knew about it. It had to have been hidden. I don't know how, they were made, but that was the key point, because later on she would tell her close friends that the reason why she made the videotapes was for her protection. That if she got into trouble with one or more of these men and had to use these videotapes, she had them.
She had them for her own safety.
The problem is the police know about the videotapes, but they don't have the videotapes.
Right.
Because nobody knows where they are.
They're missing.
And they've never been found. Another person that police considered was a man named Rudy Mazzella. This guy was a well-known party thrower. He was also a drug dealer to the elite in LA and in the Hollywood area. He was also a very scary guy.
Yeah, very scary, man. He would sport a gun. He had no problem taking out a knife and waving it around in crowds. He wanted people to know, don't mess with me.
Well, this was a guy that was known to take action, right? If you crossed him, if something needed to happen, he wasn't afraid to make it happen. Those are scary individuals.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times they may not be as worried about the consequences as, people like you and I would be.
Right.
They're more worried about taking care of whatever it is they have to take care of.
But if you're dealing drugs, you probably need to have that type of reputation.
You do. Because that means people are not going to probably mess with you because they know you're not a BS person. A woman informed the police later in 1977 that she overheard this guy, Rudy, brag to some guys at his house that it was him. He murdered Christa Helm. So the police hauled him in for questioning. And of course, he denied saying any of that. And I think in the end, they made the determination that he didn't kill Christa. He was saying these things to sound tough. He was trying to scare these people.
Build his reputation a little bit.
Yep. Build up his reputation. Rudy has since died, as have, quite a few people probably involved in this case. So Rudy as a suspect probably goes no further than it's gone to this point.
Yeah, there's nothing else you can do with it.
Let's talk about another theory surrounding Christa's death. The night before she died, while she was dating this female backup singer that we talked about from the recording studio, she left the studio with the keyboard player this night before she died. The two had flirted for, some time, but by all indications, Christa was in love with her backup singer. But apparently Christa went back to this guy's house. They had sex, but they were caught by this guy's girlfriend, who just happened to be Debbie, the woman that Christa met just a few weeks before her death.
Yeah.
She happened to be the girlfriend of the keyboard player. That couldn't have gone over well with her catching them in the act. So obviously the police talked to Debbie after Christa's murder about this incident. Debbie told them that, it didn't really bother her all that much. But she went on to tell the police that Christa's female lover was extremely jealous. This is something that she told the police that she talked to her boyfriend about. She's like, we need to be concerned about Christa's girlfriend. She could hurt us both if she ever found out. So it seems to me, Gibbs, is she, obviously she's shifting any suspicion away from herself.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, she's putting Christa's lover, her girlfriend, on police radar.
Very much so. She's doing what she needs to do. Exactly what you said. Off me, onto her, move on.
Yep.
Yeah.
The problem is the police at the time, they couldn't locate Christa's girlfriend. The next person to talk about, to me, is very interesting. It's the actor Tony Sirico. And a lot of people probably won't recognize that name, but the name that they will recognize is Paulie Walnuts. So Tony played Paulie Walnuts on The Sopranos. In an episode that 48 Hours did on the case, they dug up some information about Tony back around the time frame when Christa was murdered. Back then he was a hardworking actor, but he hung around a lot of the same people that Christa did. He also had a friendship with Christa's roommate, Stephanie. And it was after Christa's murder that Tony spent a lot of time with Stephanie, comforting her. But the big bombshell in that episode, Gibbs, is them saying that, Stephanie remembered seeing Tony removing videotapes from Christa's belongings. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Because the videotapes, I think, are one of the key pieces to this case. She also said that Tony took a lot of Christa's furs and clothing, but apparently police never questioned Tony about any of this back then. It really wasn't until, 30 years later, during the cold case investigation, when police started talking to Tony. At first he said he didn't remember Christa. He said he was never at Christa's apartment on the day that she died or on any of the other dates in question. But it was when the police started to press him on his whereabouts on the night of Christa's death that his attorney stepped in and ended the questioning. Not long after this interview, police were informed that Christa's furniture, her jewelry, her furs, a lot of these things that had gone missing were actually stored with one of her longtime friends who was a Hollywood designer. Christa's daughter confirmed this on the 48 Hours episode. And I think Gibbs, through more investigation, police felt that Tony removed these items, gave them to this designer friend in an effort to preserve Christa's legacy, her image. But I think the missing ingredient in all of this is still what happened to the little black book and what happened to the tapes. That's something that no one has really, talked about or really come out and said, this is what happened. The designer friend of Christa's has died. Tony doesn't talk about this case anymore. While these cold case investigators were working it, they were able to process some of the DNA that had been found under Christa's fingernails back in 77. They couldn't do anything with it then, but, technology had progressed to the point where they could. It ended up matching an unknown female. The police eventually were able to get DNA samples from Debbie and the woman who people claimed was Christa's girlfriend.
Yeah.
But there was no match. And this person that is alleged to have been Christa's girlfriend said, you know what? I never even lived in Southern California, and I have no clue who this person is.
Which was a big deal. I mean, because a lot of people would say that she had this love affair with this person, and this person's like,
Wasn't me. So, in this case, a lot of rabbit holes, right? We've got this mysterious diary that maybe contained sexual secrets of the Hollywood elites back in the day. Maybe it didn't, but it's never been found. And the sex tapes have never been found. We have a drug dealer who claimed to have killed Christa in private, but has denied it publicly. We have a known killer who killed another actor on the same day the previous years, pretty much in the same manner. There's a lot of jealousy, possibly in this case, right? There could be a jealous wife of some of the men that Christa slept with, the jealous girlfriend, jealous men that she had dated and then discarded for someone else.
Yeah, you could have the men upset over the diary, the men upset over the videotapes that allegedly she made. Maybe the extortion that went behind that, if it actually happened.
And then you have the possibility, Gibbs, that this was just a lover's quarrel with somebody that turned bad. Yeah. And it didn't have anything to do with all of this mystery and intrigue, but they just never figured out who this person was.
Yeah, just maybe something went really bad that night. Maybe whoever she was seeing didn't want her to go out that night, followed her over there, had a knife, approached her, and the rage took over, and what happened, and then that person fled the scene. If it was a female, maybe she went somewhere else. Who knows?
But the fact is, this case is over 40 years old.
Yes.
And police have some evidence. They have some DNA, which is pretty amazing for a 40-year-old plus case. That, number one, they have it, but number two, they were actually able to get a usable sample from it. I think is pretty amazing.
Very surprising.
So I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever be solved, but it is a very fascinating and mysterious unsolved case. But that's it. That's the case of the murder of Christa Helm. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
We like voicemails.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is Erin Bizarro. That's right, like the alternate world in Superman. I'm calling because I am a new supporter, fairly new, a couple of weeks new. I have been binge listening for the last month, fairly caught up on both TCAT and Unsolved. I've got to say, you guys have kept me company pretty much for at least 6 hours a day while at work, on my commute, while I'm driving around for work. I think you guys really have chemistry. The research you do is much appreciated. The information you share is just really eye-opening to take in and really makes you think about the world we live in today and about your neighbors. I would like to see you cover the New Bedford highway killer, and he was located in New Bedford, Massachusetts. There was a suspect that was ultimately charged with one of the 11 killings But who knows? That if you would look into it, that would be great. Thanks so much for keeping me company, and keep your own time ticking.
So I had to look it up, Gibbs. We actually did that case on Unsolved.
Sounded familiar.
But it was old. It's episode, like, I think number 24. So it's only available on Stitcher Premium.
Gotcha.
But, again, we've done so many cases. I literally have to go to the list
to see if to
confirm whether we've done one or not. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yep.
That might be the sign that you've done too many cases.
Never too many.
Never too many. But 6 hours a day. That's a lot of Mike and Gibby.
That's a whole lot of Mike and Gibby.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. Not leaving a voicemail, but calling a podcast. My name is Terry. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm new to the whole podcast stuff, but not to true crime. I was a chemical dependency counselor for quite a while and was the primary counselor at a halfway house for female felons on parole. So I've been kind of a true crime head for a long time. I think your show is excellent. Your rapport is wonderful, but you also have a way of lifting my spirits. I'm disabled now. It's a long story, but it helps me to feel connected. I was wondering if you had looked into the case of the Bardstown murders, the 5 unsolved deaths and disappearances. You may have, I might have just missed it, but I just really would love to see some justice there. By the way, I grew up down the street from Maldonado. My sister hung out with his daughter. A lot of weird stuff in Louisville and all over. And I generally say I'm team all y'all. So we'll just put it like that. Have a great day and keep your own time ticking.
I actually really like team all y'all.
Yeah, team y'all.
We should get a shirt.
We should.
Team all y'all.
I wonder, is she a Louisville fan or?
Did you hear how she pronounced it? She did not say Louisville. It's Louisville.
Yeah, well, doesn't mean it's right. So
she lives in the city.
But you can live there. Doesn't mean, you can still say it the wrong way. I just want to know if she's a Wildcat fan or what's the Louisville?
Cardinals.
I don't care either way.
You're really outing yourself as a huge sports fan.
Well, I am sports, but I don't follow those teams. That's for sure.
Bardstown. I don't think we have not done that.
We have not,
but we have it on the list.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. It's your number one fan from Long Beach, California, Tamra Vasquez. I can't tell you how thrilled I was to finally get my shout out for being a Patreon member, and to hear my boy Gibby say Vasquez was an absolute thrill. I got to hear it both on Unsolved, on TCAT, and on the Patreon episode on video. So I am just beyond thrilled to death. I want to thank you guys for all of the hard work and dedication that you give to each and every story each and every week. You make the victims real to us. I have cried, I have laughed out loud, and I'm telling everybody that I know to listen to your podcast. I do TCAT, TCAT Unsolved, and now Criminology, and so do all of my friends. I can't thank you enough for what you do for us. And I really especially appreciate the Patreon episodes. You guys go the extra length for us, and I really do appreciate it. I love you tremendously. Keep up the hard work. Keep doing what you're doing, and above all, keep your own time ticking. Love you guys.
Yeah, we love you too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Cracks me up when people get a kick out of you butchering their name.
Do I butcher their name?
She said you did.
Does she know how to say her name?
I think she does.
I don't know.
Also, my dog is barking.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
I'm sure people are hearing it, so I'm saying it right now.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Tyler. I'm calling from right outside of Detroit in the Oak Park area. Mike will know where that's at. I was just listening to your episode 141 about Time Weisenhunt, and it's just crazy to me that, honestly, you gotta believe that the mom was obviously doing something with the son, and the dad was doing something with the daughter. But the main reason I was calling because, Mike, your story about the gas station guy with the screwdriver certainly had to be a crackhead. That almost had me rolling on the floor because, it sounds like the typical East Side gas station at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I also was calling because it's funny because this episode episode, you mentioned the last two movies I watched in the last week, Oh Brother Wild Thou and Law Abiding Citizen, and I thought that just was hilarious, so I definitely had to call in. I don't think I've called in and left a voicemail, but I've listened to you guys for about a year now. You guys are great. Both podcasts are great. Sometimes I love to hear the Unsolved because it leaves you with that, feeling in your throat, like, I hope they catch that bastard. But then the solved ones are great, too. But I'm definitely a Team Gibby fan. But I got hometown love for Mike, so keep your own time ticking and keep doing the show, guys.
All right. Love it. Love the voicemails.
Brother, where art thou? I remember that one.
You remember that one? Because you
Yeah.
brought it up and made a whole mess of it.
Homer.
Homer.
Going to read that book, man. Going to read all 4,000 pages of that.
All right. You do that, and then I want a book report on my desk by Monday morning.
Yeah, good luck with that.
All right, everyone. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.